Welcome to the first episode of the investpod MENA. Today, my guest is Karima El Hakim, one of the biggest voices in Fintech in Africa and Egypt. She is the country director at Plug and Play, and she's also the co-chair of Africa and the chair of Egypt within the MENA Fintech Association. I really hope that you enjoy the conversation. There's lots to learn, especially about her philosophy in investing. So let's do it. Karima, I'm very happy that you're with us today. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me today.
First question that I love to ask people is, who is Karima El Hakim outside the world of investment and entrepreneurship?
So outside the world of investment, I'm pretty much a few things, not just So in the morning, I tend to anchor my days with a fixed schedule. I've been teaching Pilates on a machine, so on a mega reformer machine, which is a very unique method and machine that we're like the only studio in Egypt to have. It's called the mega reformer. And I also teach Versa Climber, which is a cardio machine that has been, let's say, backed by someone like LeBron James, someone like Nadal.
Nice.
And it's basically some fitness to anchor my day in the morning as a teacher. And that's one aspect of things. The second aspect, I would say, I'm a member of the community actively. So I actively participate in not necessarily charity-specific organizations, but I'm an advocate for initiatives that support women and girls, in particular in Egypt, especially in underprivileged areas. I try to advocate as well for other things, such as not necessarily climate and sustainability, but at some point I was heavily invested on raising awareness on the protection of the mangroves in the Red Sea.
Okay.
But that was a long time ago. So
Very interesting initiative.
Yeah. So I feel like I can describe myself as a passionate entrepreneurship active, let's say, ecosystem builder, but also someone that's very active in terms of wellness, fitness, etc., and conscious to my community as well.
I love that. My next question is to do with your professional side.
Okay.
You know, you've had a lot of experiences, corporates, unicorn startups, now investing. Tell us a bit more about that.
طيب, again, just for the sake of our age difference, I'm not that young, so I've had maybe like around 13 years of professional experience that is a bit versatile, but I can summarize them in a few sentences كده. So I did have a multi, let's say, geography experience. My first job was actually in Paris.
Okay.
Where I studied my master's. Like, I had my master's degree and I studied in France. So naturally, I decided to have my first job following also a relationship with one of my professors who was actually working full-time in Danone.
Okay.
And that was my first job. And to be honest, I think corporate, I worked in Danone, worked in Orascom Development, so corporate is an incredibly, let's say, nurturing environment in the sense of building discipline, building understanding of business, understanding what is a P&L, what are you responsible for, وكده. فدي حاجة. The second part about corporate experience is that you get exposure to different, let's say, types of people from different backgrounds. In a startup environment, it's not the same. Usually startups, they tend to also have like a homogeneous culture, which makes it work. But in corporates, you understand the word politics all the time.
Yes.
So this is actually very nurturing in the sense of building maturity, experience, and discipline.
And you've worked there for like more than 5 years, I believe.
I did, yes. Total corporate experience was around 6 years.
Okay.
Danone a bit less than 2, and Orascom Development a bit more than 4. بس فبعديها على طول I think corporate is generally a decent milestone in someone's career. Yani I'm not someone that's gonna preach, oh, you finish, start your own stuff, or go join a startup on the spot, توظف a corporate. لا, I think it's
very good
actually
stepping stone.
and I believe in corporate innovation as well, and this is kind of part of the work I do. I don't just invest in startups. We also support corporates to learn how to collaborate with startups. فبرضه bridging that experience and knowing how corporations and conglomerates think is something decent. يعني my other what I can get you out of برضه my other experiences, because I know I promised you like a brief in 3 sentences and I've been talking 3.5
please
minutes.
go ahead, please.
بس حاجة تانية ممكن أقولك عليها إن أنا after the corporate experience I did more of a ecosystem in Egypt experience. اللي هو بقى Falak Startups, that was one of the earliest.
So how was the jump?
It was random. It was completely random.
Okay.
لو عايزني أدي لك
Yes, please.
قصة.
Yeah.
Okay. So actually pretty random. So I had a great run in Orascom development. I was reporting to like someone I truly respect and that I admire so much. Part of the family of Orascom, the Sawiris family, and I've learned so much, and I kind of capped in a way where the person is no longer actively like my boss was no longer actively like in the company anymore. I was confused after 5 years, and I was like, you know what? I'm being recruited by some of the, the solar companies that we were trying to bring on board. And I was like, Ida, that's really cool.
So they were offering you positions.
Yeah. So but years in, after, and it wasn't like a conflict of interest kind of way. So the CEO of one of the largest solar companies was a good connection, connection, and we pursued a few conversations of me potentially joining after like 5 years or 4.5 years in Orascom. So I, by pure coincidence, decided to ask his ex-CFO about some advice, how to negotiate for my package, how to like negotiate for my role, etc. But she's like, you know what? How about you come to the office and meet me at my new job, which was Falak. So she was actually the chief investment something like officer for Falak at the point at her at the time. So I was going to see her and meet her to ask her about this other company. And I sat down with her and she's like, yeah, sure, you'll do great, and this is a great company for you. And by pure coincidence, the managing director came in to say hi. And he's like, hey, what are you doing here? It's nice to see you. Falak, what we do. I'm like, yes, this is great, so exciting. He's like, I'm really looking to hire someone strategic because I'm jumping to another role later. And how about you join us? And I'm like, you know what? How serious are you? He's like, well, I'm probably faster to give you a job offer than the other person you're actually asking about. So I'm like, okay, sure. So we started talking, and this landed me my first role in an entrepreneurship space, environment, sorry, in a startup enabler environment that I had no clue that I was gonna join. And for me, I was probably gonna make a jump from a big conglomerate publicly traded in Switzerland and Egypt, etc. And then never did I think that I'm going to go to an accelerator / investment VC, early stage VC. And I did not know what an early stage VC. I never heard the word ecosystem. وبرضو as a disclaimer, I'm French educated. I started to be quite fluent in English later in life. Even some small, like even business terminologies are fine. But I mean, even like hearing the word ecosystem itself, I know ecosystem, but for me it was like more of a science, like the ecosystem on the marine ecosystem. Like I never thought about it in a business ecosystem way. So it really it was a pure coincidence صراحة. I feel it's more I'm someone that's also a bit spiritual, that I feel like it's fate, that sometimes energies and your path is, you find it. But أنا alhamdulillah, I joined a great company like Falak, had great colleagues, they opened doors for me. We were very like, let's say, linear, like agile, After this, I went to Fawry, reported directly to the CEO. I had a great experience, so much learning from this. Deployed my first direct tickets into startups without having to run around, and by real tickets, I mean $1 million tickets.
So you were, يعني, part of your role was also business development, and then the other part was investment.
With Fawry,
صح.
I was mainly investing into the startups and doing BD for startups to come integrate inside Fawry. Not BD in general for Fawry, but it was more ecosystem building so that they can get a grasp of like the company itself from a cultural perspective, how to deal, how to partner with startups. And Bordeaux, the BD side of things was also to give them opportunities to do partnerships cross-border, etc. I did more my first outside of Egypt investment with Fawry in Sudan, right before the Sudanese
So these were investments
crisis.
into companies or acquisitions?
Investments, direct tickets in companies, and
Wow.
and the Sudanese story is very nice. I'll tell you about it. But just to summarize on my learnings from work, I think
Especially in BD.
يعني BD is a حمادة تاني خالص. يعني BD has a very like, it's very hard to describe. So you're someone that's very strategic, very organized, and you're expected to grow business, but in the same time, your role is so fluid that accountability and praise are very hard to define as well. You can really push things through and then see the fruits of it years later because it was a strategic BD, not a sales opportunity. Measuring BD success is very hard. BD is also a lone wolf kind of thing, but a team player kind of DNA. So you are a lone wolf because you need to act fast, you need to take responsibility, you need to use your personal network, but in the same time, you're actually a team player. It's not me, it's the organization versus other departments that have like very strongly defined roles. Marketing, they have an identity. We are the marketing team. And as BD, usually you feel like you're the
intersection
entire
of
company.
everything.
Yes, so it's a very interesting. I think BD is great as a way to understand the company and then specialize into something. So BD first and then grow into your role, potentially leadership role later. My general, let's say, net takeaway كده from my professional work is that agile environments are the best. يعني people who really have no عقد, يعني very very little.
Yes.
We have no time for drama, no time for politics, and generally this does not happen in corporates generally. Agile environments are great. When you are responsible for a P&L, this is a different story. And this, I've only experienced it when I joined Plug and Play in a leadership role.
Okay.
So I'm responsible for the country's P&L. This is, whenever you're not responsible of a P&L, then there's a lot of room to breathe, to be creative, to be كده. And I think BD is a great role that is very dangerously positioned sometimes. So not dangerously, but I mean for the person. It's a thin line between strategic work and just feeling very frustrated because you're not seeing things through, and very fine line between a lone wolf and a lone role and being a team player, and having the team as your DNA as well.
I love that. I really agree with you, especially in business development. It's very creative. I think it pushes you to learn new things, pushes you to network, get to know people. So I definitely recommend it. This brings me back to my next question, which is your role in Plug and Play. Please tell us about it. Tell us also about, you mentioned corporate innovation and what you're trying to do with corporate innovation.
So Plug and Play, I don't know, just for the viewers, yani, it's one of the leading early stage VCs globally. If anything, the past 2 or 3 years we've been awarded the most active VC in early stage investments in terms of activity, like numbers of tickets, etc. Such a wonderful very diverse environment. We're present in more than 40 countries, in over 60 cities. أنا بقى يعني Egypt and Africa as a whole is playing a different role برضو. The Western markets in plug and play versus emerging markets, you can see a bit the difference in terms of the clients we served, in terms of the activities we do. So VC wise, it's very homogeneous. يعني it's we globally invest early stage tickets in the top founders everywhere, يعني, sector agnostic as well. The second thing we do, and this has been our, let's say, key activity that got us where we are now, is run extremely world-class, operationally excellent accelerator programs.
Okay.
And these accelerator programs are what also grew the network of plug and play to have like hundreds of thousands of startups in our network. Not necessarily طبعا portfolio, احنا we're around 2000 plus, but like يعني, let's say 60 to 70,000 startups are actively engaged with the teams of plug and play.
Amazing.
In the past 10 years مثلا. So a very vast and wide network of early stage companies. That is a wealth that a lot of people don't see right away. That's one thing. And the second thing is the corporate innovation. The third thing, is the corporate innovation part, which is now becoming a big focus. And I'll explain to you why. First of all, the corporate innovation is bespoke services to big corporations or maybe locally large corporations in the markets we operate in.
Okay.
Companies that want to grow their efficiencies, grow their profits, grow their revenues, using technology, using efficiencies that would be made possible via technologies.
Okay.
Either directly by looking at them from a collaborative or technical deal flow. So they could, us as their advisors, as their innovation advisors, they tell us we have a specific challenge, either in my supply chain or in the actual product, etc. Then we go source globally from our network, from our other
portfolio
external network,
maybe.
portfolio, but anything, by the way. So we are fair.
Very
we don't limit
approach.
the portfolio board. We need to serve the customers with the fairness and of giving them access to everything under our reach. يعني not necessarily favoring خلي بالك the portfolio companies of which we're gonna make an exit or an extra profit. يعني. This is so when we speak to our clients, etc., we bring them world-class solutions. We help them POC, like proof of concept, the solution. We can even help them understand where the challenges are. So sometimes some corporates don't know where the challenges are. Okay. So we take them back and we actually run with a team of consultants that we have. يعني احنا we are a big team, but I'm personally not an expert. Like I'm not ex-Deloitte or ex-McKinsey to like look at the efficiencies in corporates. However, we do have people who are very qualified, very senior, based out of our open innovation service department, for example, that can come in and do that analysis on their behalf. And we're the operations and the client interfacing in these situations, for example. Sometimes the ask is not for developing products. Sometimes the ask can be acquisitions. So we can run direct CVCs, so corporate venture capital, for our customers who want to now learn how to invest like a VC, and who better than plug and play can give them the manual of early stage investments, for example. فدي حاجة, this is just to sum up what we do. The difference between emerging markets and the Western markets are the type of clients. Sometimes it also shows you who are the real enablers in our markets. Our customers, our main anchor partners are government-owned companies. The same in Morocco, the same in our GCC offices.
You're talking about the companies participating in such programs, right?
No, I mean the sponsors, our customers.
Okay, nice.
Our sponsors of the accelerator program. Sorry, maybe I was not clear, but we don't run hundreds of accelerator programs without partners, Mati. We're not like, it's not a subscription model, and we don't charge startups.
Yeah.
So technically there needs to be kind of a sponsor or a backer, either corporate or a government entity. But if you see it in the West, you'll find these big private sector companies backing these accelerator programs. And here you'll see that the first step is by the government,
Okay.
which tells you two things: that in our region, since we're still a bit not nascent, we are quite mature, but we still need that push by the government. And because the corporates, and especially the multinationals, they don't necessarily innovate from within the region.
They rely on
للأسف.
okay.
Where will they innovate within the region outside of
Makes sense.
our neighbor? فبس it's very difficult to find big budgets for innovation that would go and focus on this.
But have you seen that there has been like a good trend in terms of participation from multinationals, especially in the region, or even from large?
Definitely, yes. Was in the region, definitely, but again, the ask is different.
Okay.
The ask is gonna be for hackathons and inclusion things, climate, sustainability, etc.
Okay.
Inshallah, and I think we will reach that. Yani, I think the more we work in the region, and I think one of our first for the corporates, the private sector corporates who are now engaged, and we've had great stuff done with Vodafone, with PepsiCo.
Nice.
Very, very cool. And hackathons with like AI assistive tools, and another hackathon, cross-border, etc. And but then it becomes inclusions, ESG, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is something I told you I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
But when it comes to let's actually come and solve that. Yeah, maybe there is the appetite, and we're still not tapping it yet. But I wish to see it more. We wish to see these big R&D labs here and not elsewhere in
Makes
the region,
sense.
because they are in like they are being built out, and there needs to be R&D centers, not in small areas in the region, but widely, so that we can serve better from an inclusion point of view.
Innovation from within the region.
Innovation from within the region, وبرضو product development for everyone. I don't know, I'm sorry to be out of topic, but I don't know if you know this, but a few years ago is the first time that the world
Yeah.
Swedish company tests crash dummies with airbags that have the body proportions of a woman. فاهم يعني ايه ان احنا we've been making cars, the world, not me, not احنا, like the world has been making cars for 80 years or more. I don't know how old cars are, بس and all the airbags until 2 years ago have been only tested on a male average size body. You can imagine how many women died in car crashes, but from the impact of the airbag, not the impact of the thing, just because the product was not developed for them. In general, لو فكرت فيها, think about it as a concept itself. When you innovate for your end user, for the African, for the woman, for the poor, for the فاهم قصدي? You need to also innovate closely to them.
Yeah.
Or at least to have some hands-on or affiliation to your target end
completely
user.
get you. Building the product for
مثلا.
the
But I'm
people.
being a bit general for this. But I hope you get my point.
Yes. I love that actually.
وخلي بالك, I'm sorry to interrupt on this, but this is also something to do with AI. Artificial intelligence, فكر gen, the language models, and we don't have Arabic representations, and the UAE and others are building the foundational models in Arabic. فهي دي نفس الحكاية. We are Arabic content represents 10% only of online content. That's like an average, global average, ولا أكتر شوية بس this is also not reflective on how the percentage of people speaking Arabic in the world. It decreases the inclusion, it decreases the
and
access.
There's a lot of impact to be created, like especially in this field.
فبرضو building using the language. The UAE has the leadership of really putting Arabic in on the map أصلا for the next generations of founders.
Very good strategic decisions from their side.
Well, I think other countries are working on it, but it's a very expensive project. I hope we all get together on that one thing and not have.
One thing I wish happens, I don't know if I hope it happens, is having like a Silicon Valley, but for our region. An area where you can get people globally from all around the world to come in, innovate.
انت عارف مين اللي بقى قرب يبقى كده يعني I feel like I wish the same too بس we're still gonna compete فاهم قصدي because we're still fragmented in terms of national agendas يعني now Saudis يعني on top in terms of attracting the international so technically the closest بتاع used to be Dubai at some point now it's like head to head and Egypt برضو is attracting or at least has the fruits أو يعني
has a lot of talent.
has the ground مش بس التالنت has the ground and the infrastructure ناس كتير تقول لك Egypt has the talent but no not only the talent the maturity level of the regulators the maturity level of the infrastructure access points طبعا the currencies the situation but it's not a situation that will stay forever فلا يعني when people tell you go to Egypt because they have talent لا it has talent it has infrastructure it has legacy systems that can turn up to be very useful especially in fintech especially in innovating in very serious sectors يعني فدي حاجة مهمة برضو تتقال بس
Amazing. But yeah, as you said, يعني, there's definitely a lot to explore within that area. The next thing, I'll shift away from corporates and focus more on startups. One thing I saw that you advocate for is the idea of chasing camels and not unicorns. And I think it's quite, let me say, controversial, especially coming from an investor standpoint.
Yeah.
From a company that invests globally with unicorns.
Yes.
Tell me more about that.
Okay. So chasing camels, that's very true. I'm chasing camels in emerging markets. That's my LinkedIn capture دي ولا حاجة كده. I think that's what I mean by camels. I mean companies that are here for the long haul in a way. Camels who بالذات and the camels are native to the region. I wanted to use something that we're familiar with. Not everyone knows that camels are magical creatures that can survive days without water in the most difficult conditions. This is called bootstrapping or this is called being an Egyptian founder in 2023, 2024 يعني فاهم اللي هو literally a camel يعني بالذات the ones that have raised in dollars and had to stop raising so they don't do down rounds so they don't do disappointments كده this has been يعني just to define the camel حاجة بقى that is not controversial that camels can be valued at $10 billion if they want to who cares لكن أنا بقى what my problem is هي مش إن unicorns are bad وبتاع إن it's unfair for us in the region to be pushing the $1 billion valuation idea if our currencies are not hedged to the dollar مثلا يعني and if overnight a big giant like Fawry who is publicly traded in front of the world, like publicly EGX traded, but traded on an Egyptian stock exchange. Thus, his valuation, their valuation is an EGP.
Yeah.
When a company with this big, let's say, revenue stream, and you can see the numbers grow in like double even.
Very healthy growth.
Very healthy growth. And then their valuation is either stagnated or drops in US dollar terms. هل ده fair? No, it's not
an
fair.
Indication of...
And why are we using a fictional animal that doesn't exist in our culture, that is borrowed from, let's say, Western mythology أصلا, it's not even real بتاع, and that literally will become a burdened benchmark for companies to try to reach. It's not advocating that unicorn ambitions are wrong. No, you can be, one should have, especially the founders from the region, they should have unicorn ambitions in the sense of the term, but they need to have the DNA of a camel. كده ده يعني whether you are unicorn or not, DNA of a camel.
Build companies that are resilient.
Build companies that are resilient, that can bootstrap, that understand their environment, that are closer in terms of even perception. يعني when you say I'm a unicorn, فاهم قصدي؟ بعدت كده خلاص عن you're one of the very few كده. It's a bit obnoxious. It's a bit I'm just saying يعني طبعا we love unicorns. They're great. But for the region, especially that I've seen Egyptian great tech companies and not early stage founders. يعني very strong companies, etc. really struggle with this understanding of unicorn and بتاع, and this could actually distract people if يعني from just pursuing the mission itself. Yeah.
So if you were to talk about like the difference in the way I approach the business, so one is like build very fast, try to grow very, very quickly, build up valuation, as you said, building that unicorn dream. You're against that. You're
But
more.
no, now everyone is against that. يعني, by the way, just as FYI, طبعا unicorn remains a concept. Unicorn remains ambitious. اللي هو let's be $1 billion. And my problem is with labeling in dollars your ambitions. Especially if you're like
Something out of your control.
No, especially if you're like just starting. Let the series B people think about being $1 billion, not now. You can always build for global markets. Don't build for يعني فاهم قصدي like يعني when you're starting to build, especially if we're gonna inject this in curriculums, especially that more universities are teaching entrepreneurship. God knows بقى how these terminologies will be re-injected in the curriculums, and then people will just have very different expectations and very different and they'll get disappointed at the end of the day. يعني. بس just the consciousness that unicorns and camels are not opposites is needed, and I honestly think camels are more magical than unicorns.
You mentioned something about expectations. Brings me swiftly onto the next question, which is about Shark Tank.
Okay.
When I was young, I used to watch Shark Tank, a lot, and it was the foundation of me getting used to some terminology which you may think it's simple, but things like somebody asking about revenue, somebody asking about profits, what's a gross profit, what are these people talking about, right? And the idea of innovation, building a product, for me, it taught me a lot. And when Shark Tank came to Egypt, I was very happy to see that the response was very, very positive from the community. People within the ecosystem, outside of the ecosystem, people just taking that different outlook. But there's one issue which I think might be a bit controversial, and it's the idea that it paints entrepreneurship as the story of a hero. Think of it as like a Rocky scene, right? Or like the movie Rocky, where you're spending years of struggle, years of this and that, and then all of a sudden your life is great and you're getting investment, but in reality it's not like that. In reality it's ups and downs. And so what do you think about that?
Well, honestly, I think you're reading my mind in terms of the right things to tackle بالذات on a community level, because this is a very big thing. This actually, I'm glad you asked. I am a very big fan, not necessarily Shark Tank, the concept. It's a great concept. It simplifies, and it's actually used to be aimed at SMEs, not startups. Originally, it's like SMEs and like small businesses and entrepreneurs, not necessarily tech startups. فدي حاجة. When it became tech startups, the shift started to be اللي هو okay, though you're talking about two tiers, and now the ecosystem is of startups is getting a lot of hype. The founders are a bit more vocal, etc. I think the team that brought Shark Tank to Egypt is brilliant, and this is the best favor they've done to Egypt. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the government of Egypt has backed this initiative, like MCIT, Ministry of Communication Information Technology, وزارة الاتصالات has backed this initiative. I've seen sponsorship by Vodafone, by like the actual community كده. I think it had great buy-in from all levels. The two بقى controversies that are there. أولاً, not all entrepreneurs have celebrated it. مش عشان حاجة, عشان some entrepreneurs who were vocal. على فكرة, you can just like search and you'll see some of their LinkedIn posts كده. They just said, as you are, that when they come, it just makes their hardship summarized in a single بتاع, and it's very contrived. صح, it's true. اللي هو طبعا خلي بالكوا, there's so much work happening before the 5 minutes
صح.
of pitch اصلا. يعني هو there is a team behind it that sources وكده. فطبعا it simplifies it for the sake of the show, but bear in mind there's so much work behind the scenes, and the startups do need to present documentations, and يعني it's not that Mickey Mouse يعني by the way. فدي حاجة. الحاجة التانية is that sometimes it could teach bad business practices of giving too much equity, because the angels and the sharks are not doing a VC round led
doing
by
like 20%,
بتاع
50%.
فبالظبط they're doing that. Technically these are not necessarily VC backable startups. يعني not every tech startup لازم ربنا كاتب لها لازم تاخد فلوس من VC. يعني this is not coming from a rule.
Yeah.
You can be a tech startup and raise from corporates and ventures and private equities and individuals and whoever, or public markets يعني
or you can
eventually.
operate the traditional route, which is bootstrap.
بالظبط it's perfect Shark Tank to go pitch to sharks وكده. في ناس اللي هم ال VC backable, they think that this is just giving the wrong principles of negotiating equity versus cash وكده. انت مالك. It's fine, to each their own. However, I think the reason why it's brilliant is because it is actually getting us somewhere. Like we're going to the actual end user. We're actually gaining the trust. Like the startups are now becoming real. The founders are becoming mature, instead of thinking, oh, these are young kids out of بتاع. They can see this is someone who just started the tech startup. That's a person that's 20 years in this big multinational. That means these guys مش عارفة ايه. It also encourages local investors. يعني ايه؟ يعني someone who sees أحمد السويدي being a shark ومش عارفة ايه وكده. A lot of the tiers of businessmen, Egyptian businessmen in Upper Egypt, who are very liquid, who want to invest in other than real estate and borsa and شهادة like a bond ومش عارفة ايه. they actually go and look, أنا هعمل زي السويدي، هعمل زي مابكا. يعني they can create inspiration for the liquidity to be re-injected and
as a form of alternate investment.
Exactly. So it's creating so much healthy dynamics and practices in the ecosystem that we really appreciate, that not a lot of people can see right away. And the second part is also getting the media and the general public back on track on trusting startups, because we've had balbala happen, and that actually had very negative repercussion for nothing. And just a really maybe unethical media people or unethical people in general that just went around generating rumors of a certain company that spent all the money that they raised, and like they took the money and ran. طبعا أي كلام يعني. It's not true. They literally just closed.
False representation.
They closed, which happens all the time.
Yeah.
But there was so much drama that the media went on a rampage on them, and they actually had very negative investment results to Egypt.
Yeah.
فبرضه بقى دلوقتي after Shark Tank, I think we caught the attention of the media, especially the traditional media that does not have the interface with startups, so they misrepresent them. They miswrite about them. They disclose wrong valuations, wrong statements that can put them in jeopardy with the regulator, with other investors. I think that's my take on Shark Tank, and I think we will see the results inshallah.
Very optimistic.
In the engagement that we do in the thing.
Yeah, this actually brings me on to my next question, which is about the aspect of the media and the media's role within the ecosystem. So there is one thing to represent an event, and then the other thing is actually the media's role in growing the ecosystem, not just highlighting what's happening.
Yeah.
So where do you think the media should position itself, and how can the media actually help startups?
بص أنا الصراحة I'll tell you something. It's something I'm a bit proud of. So I managed to get a few traditional media, and one specifically يعني I'm gonna give them a shout out, هي جريدة المال, a bit closer to the ecosystem by organizing direct introductions held within a contained environment of B2C and strong companies to sit with these people, to sit with these journalists, and specifically some journalists that write for the صفحة الاتصالات والتكنولوجيا, so specific people, so not any random, مش أي حاجة وخلاص, like a very specific صفحة, so that we can actually take one success story at a time.
Yes.
We take it one success story at a time. And the more these people, especially the B2C companies, or the companies that are going into a new round after raising a successful round, they will get the exposure organically. And the journalists will see the engagement of the people, because people want to read about startups, by the way. يعني مش قصدي حاجة, this is the coolest space to be in now.
Yes.
يعني طبعا you can find other interesting spaces, I'm sure, but I mean, if
And
you're
media
reading
follows
business,
attention.
if you're reading business, I don't want to read about يعني oil and gas, يعني خلاص c'est passé يعني. بس the journalist sees how the crowd is engaging, and they get proud. And they message me. They're like, "Thank you very much. These stories actually got me so much traction internally in the
Amazing.
in the journal." ومش عارف إيه. I'm like, really وبتاع. And then the startups, they tell us thank you, because this is the first time they get to interact with the journalist, and the journalist is not a hit and run. They're not here to take the information and go. That the journalist is giving them the courtesy of even showing them the text to make sure that they're not writing something wrong, because we are now dealing with startups who are dealing with top investors globally. They are being regulated by the regulators. خلاص بقى, we want to minimize the damage. So a small misrepresentation of a number, a small word that insinuates that this company has a رخصة but they have an approval, فدي بقى الريجوليتور يجي يمسك في رقبتهم يقول لهم انت you said that you have a رخصة but you don't. So they're like, no, but we didn't say that.
We didn't say that.
فبس at least في حتة كده, and up until next year I think we need to do that, and then we leave them, like the two communities, to handle themselves.
Yes.
بس يعني I'm just trying to simplify a strategy that we try to do, that I think inshallah can be a first cornerstone in having a healthy, non-toxic relationship between startups and the people reporting about them.
Talking about news, and especially global news, I wanted to speak about global investment and investment into Egypt. What do you think are the major challenges? And then the one thing I want to talk about more specifically is the devaluation, the impact of the devaluation. Do you think it has had more of a positive impact or a negative impact?
لا دي الصراحة a bit macro for me to give you like an actual informed.
Yeah, but you're.
بس I can tell you,
Yes.
يعني technically لا, moral كان زي الزفت. يعني we had a very, let's say, okay, and by the way, it's not about this devaluation. It's about the past. It's about اللي هو it's been 10 years that there is a momentum that people are pushing through, being resilient. And then another hit, يعني it was more of a shocking hit from a camels. يعني camels can also like give up, فاهم فكرة؟
Yes.
يعني that was kind of, I think that was the most negative thing, the moral part. Did this get solved? I don't know. يعني احنا we do realize that there is hot money and coming in and out, and when I say hot money, I'm literally saying a buzzword. فأنا ما أعرفش technically the consequences of this and the long-term consequences of this هي ايه. بس when you say hot money, it's not, it seems like it's gonna go. It's hot and it's gonna bounce.
You talk about hot money flows like in and out.
بالظبط,
Yeah.
it's bouncing out يعني. فدي حاجة. طبعا يعني the investments from the Emirates were incredibly يعني generous and طبعا strategic, and طبعا it gave us that boost. بس برضو we are looking forward to seeing investments flow in برضو from different areas for different purposes, يعني not necessarily for developmental of regions, of land,
Yes.
etc. But we would like to say يعني maybe maybe if the investment is gonna go to a specific area in terms of developmental of construction developmental يعني of like city developments etc. That's great, but maybe parts of it can also go into getting us into the infrastructure بقى of the Arabic language models of
Yes,
AI يعني
yes.
أي حاجة كده مثلا. that would be nice to see. بس طبعا the devaluation was difficult, but again we saw it passed. It's still يعني we're still we still assume potentially another draw يعني بس يعني I don't know.
But within your network of startup founders, what is some of the common themes or some of the common problems that have...
The pains are the طبعا دلوقتي خلاص everyone knows they need to diversify their fund their sources of revenues to be EGP and non-EGP based.
Okay.
If you're not doing this today, then you missed the lesson of the last year.
Okay.
بس فدي حاجة. فناw founders should not, after following this diversification of revenues, and by the way the Lebanese founders have been doing this من زمان يعني فاهم قصدي. Lebanese founders are brilliant. They're building Lebanese companies for global markets so that they're like for بالآخر. Egyptian founders should start doing the same. Then we won't have a problem of raising funds anymore because you're diversified.
Absolutely.
عادي يعني. The second problem is paying, is access to dollars for those who it's not an investment problem يعني. Let's just say you're a tech-enabled SME, okay, that is very liquid in EGP عادي شغال زي الفل.
Okay.
And you're hosting your data on AWS. You can get...
You're paying in dollars.
You're paying in dollars and يا ريت you need to source illegally بقى. فأنت هتدفع ازاي؟
Yes.
دي فكرة. The compliance part, it just drives companies to just do non-compliant things. فدي برضو حاجة. And I'm a big يعني if I advocate for camels as much as I advocate for compliance at the earliest stages of your venture. And by compliance is understanding your regulations. مش لازم, you don't have to get the regulation يعني the license on the spot, but build for the regulation, for the license to not hinder your product development, because the licenses are also now, they're technical sandboxes, yeah, they're regulatory sandboxes, technical sandboxes. They're looking at your cybersecurity infrastructure, okay, the very basic stuff you need to have if you're going to play around consumer data and consumer money.
A lot of things that you need to consider.
A lot of compliance thing, and hosting cost is very, very expensive in dollars, especially if you're using the top tier cloud infrastructure companies.
But these companies, like you said, they need to ensure that they're compliant. But what is it within their capacity that they can do in order to navigate this issue? We don't...
No, ما أنا مش بقولك إن الissue دي it's non navigatable يعني. أنت هتعمل إيه؟ فاهم قصدي؟ I'm just saying in general this hinders compliance.
Yeah.
And that's one of the issues as well. And companies who are in tech cannot host. And يعني I don't remember who told me this مش كده, بس apparently one of the cloud infrastructure companies كانوا صعبوا عليهم يعني. The POC guy الناحية التانية they're like poor guy مش عارف ايه, طب خلاص we'll give you credit facility يعني. كان في يعني كان في ناس بتعطف عليهم يعني, which is, and they're doing great.
Bringing me back to taking into account a more holistic approach about the fintech space, where do you think are some of the opportunities that exist within the region, especially when we talk about the underbanked people? Like what sectors or what sort of niches can people sort of focus on from your generic understanding of the market?
Well, actually payments and fintech is أنا بقى يعني versus the macro question you asked me على the valuation. لا يعني fintech and payments I can give you an informed response on this. I think remittances, especially into Africa,
okay,
يعني very, very strategic space. Infrastructure playing on not necessarily the payments space, but on the lending space على حتة الscoring, especially that all the banks in emerging markets, most of them, most of the emerging market banks, they don't have a culture of lending to tech-enabled SMEs or startups, and this is basically the neo banking model يعني.
It's the life of
بالضبط. this is برضو something to look into. فهي I think هي inclusion يعني ما هو ده this is for inclusion. That's basically tech for inclusion, fintech for inclusion.
Yeah.
And once you have this and you can reach millions and hundreds of millions, I think it could be even much more impactful than like a crypto exchange. فاهم انا مالي يعني.
Actually, I'm glad you
يعني
mentioned
فاهم
crypto.
قصدي يعني great. انا by the way I don't want to sound, especially that you probably have a young audience, I don't want to sound ignorant on this, but I'm very far from the cryptocurrency space. يعني I should diversify my personal portfolio of investments but into this, but by the nature of my work and the nature of the fact that I'm based out of Africa and in a country where I'm not able to source digital currencies or even stable coins safely.
And your transactions are in dollars as well, so again,
يعني بالظبط. So that's my I don't get it. But when it comes to inclusion, savings apps, يعني people are not يعني they're not using the traditional banking system and خلاص people are and now in Egypt we're launching the digital banking system. طيب ماشي. However, how are you able to convert the people that you missed offline directly into your online business? That's why the fintechs are the ones that will be able to grasp it. But it's not about converting the big giant banks into digital banks and you're gonna grasp the underbanked market.
yeah,
خالص. هو it was never a barrier for them اللي هو by the way I don't put my money in Bank Mosque just because they're not online. أكيد لا.
It's not a
فاهم
barrier.
قصدي؟ فهو
Yeah,
it's not and it's not about reaching the branch برضه.
Yep.
فهي فيها حاجة كده. I think there needs to be a deeper look into the market when we are converting now, when we're giving licenses to the traditional banks, not to be unrealistic and think these are the ones that will actually give us the inclusion side. I don't know. I'm not sure.
But do you think this actually like links to your like corporate innovation side, which is actually helping banks unlock some use cases through the technology being built by startups?
Banks turning into a digital bank, this is bigger than corporate innovation. يعني أنا مثلا I can give them better efficiencies in their retails and بتاع. But this is for مثلا a big national bank to turn digital. لا, you're building a company from scratch. This has nothing to do. Digital banking cannot be integrated قوي in the corporate innovation transformation, corporate any digital transformation. It's not a digital transformation.
Okay, it's a
it's
brand new
complete,
initiative.
بالظبط يعني. بس I'd love to see برضو the fintechs or the neo fintechs or the neo banking companies برضو be heard from a digital banking يعني side and merge with the efforts of the traditional banks who are becoming digital. أنا عشان خايفة عليهم مش عشان حاجة, عشان I want the fintechs to also bring
everyone
them
to win.
بالظبط because they need to work together. It's not going to be a competition. It can't.
Absolutely. It's about serving the market and not serving individual needs.
And these big banks have mega P&Ls and mega budgets, deep pockets that the fintechs don't have, but the fintechs have the way to talk and to operate and agility and development and technical excellence and resilience and better market fit برضو.
Yeah. And just an understanding, they've been in the space.
They've been in the space
before. They've been resilient in the space. That's the idea.
They survived in the space.
Exactly.
فلو عرفوا يكملوا كل ده يبقى they deserve a seat on the table at least.
100%. I think that's it for the questions. It was a lovely session.
Thank you.
And very, very beautiful insights on the fintech space in general. And I really, really hope that people take into account your philosophy, which is the idea of camels and not unicorns. And yes, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Adam, and congratulations for launching this.
Thank
it's
you.
your first venture, so you're an entrepreneur yourself. يعني
you could say
in
that.
between صح أيوة فكرة that's very cool يعني and to be very frank, I know that we've had this offline, but I'm very proud that someone like you just cold messaged me on LinkedIn, and seeing Bordo that you had like your gown, like cap and gown picture. I was like, all right, he's just graduating and doing an investment podcast. Bravo عليك.
But thank you so much. Thank you.
Great, thank you.